Well, that's interesting because so Habbe is where you lift up the scroll.
That's right, and you show it to everyone. This is the Torah.
So there's a scroll in Berlin, which I've been told, I haven't lifted it up myself. I've seen it, but I didn't weigh it. I'm told it weighs 60 kilos, which is about 120 pounds. So how on earth it couldn't have been one person. It had to be at least two people, I would think, to lift that thing.
It's kind of dangerous, though.
Yeah, you'd think it would rip because...
well, it depends on how much tension you put it under.
Yeah.
And how it's sewn together.
You'd have to be really careful to be careful. Yeah. Well, and Mark mentioned, I think in the program we did together, series of programs, that a lot of the scrolls he's repaired are when somebody did Habbe.
Habbe accidents.
And it ripped.
Yeah. Either a Habbe accident or sometimes some synagogues for Simchat Torah will unroll. There'll either be a Simchat Torah accident, potentially as well, where we take them all out and we do hakafot. We dance around the synagogue with them. And you can sometimes have an accident then if you're not careful. And also, sometimes some synagogues like to unroll the entire Sefer Torah all around the entire inside of the synagogue and have everyone hold on to it at the top.
Okay,
and see the whole thing.
We have to talk about this. So there was an incident. It must have been about 10 years ago, where there was this Christian pastor who had some kind of a scandal, and I don't even know the details. I was gonna say I don't remember the details.
Let's not gossip.
But no. Here's the part that's important.
Yeah.
So when he came back to his out of exile, let's call it that.
Right.
He brought in a Messianic Jewish rabbi, who took out a Torah scroll, unrolled it, and wrapped this Christian pastor in the Torah scroll. And this became an international scandal because they were touching the Torah scroll with their hands, right? You had people who were holding it, and it was this international scandal. It's cultural appropriation, which I don't entirely disagree with. It's desecrating the Torah scroll, which I don't entirely disagree with. But it's something Jews don't do. And Jews do that. That was just a lie.
No, Jews don't wrap another human being in the Torah scroll.
No, they don't. But they do unravel an entire Torah scroll, and they have people hold on to it, and they have them touch it with their bare hands. And
they're not supposed to do that.
Yeah, but you just described how they're holding it, right?
So this is only something that started happening with. It really only started happening with sort of the baby boomer generation, with the Jewish catalog generation and the Pnei Or movement.
Jewish catalog generation? I don't know what that is.
There's the first, second, and third Jewish catalog, and they were
never heard of it.
They first started writing them, I believe, in sort of 1968, 70, something like that. It was basically Jews who were of the baby boomer generation who felt dissatisfied with, and they didn't feel like they connected well with their parents' Judaism.
Okay.
And that's fair. Every generation makes decisions like that for itself, right?
Yeah, sure.
I'm a Gen Xer. We did things differently too. So
okay.
And now we have more generations who do things differently. Okay. That's just how it goes.
So what was the catalog?
So the catalogs, they collected lots of different things. Uh-huh. And they illustrated it themselves, and they wrote in it, and there's a bit on scribal arts in the first Jewish catalog. There's a bit on, different creative ways of making different Jewish rituals meaningful. Mm-hmm. Because a lot of people, if they had a very American identity, and maybe they had become divorced from their tribal Jewish heritage and their religious affiliation and everything, then they didn't necessarily find it meaningful, because all that was left was the ritual, and because the meaning hadn't been passed down to everybody, it was sort of hollow for them. Mm-hmm. So they were trying to reclaim it. I mean, as you know, a lot of people of that generation changed religion, and that was at a time when a lot of people, that's the first generation really where it was becoming sort of not unheard of for people to change religions, to convert to different religions, right? Now it's very common. So they wanted to reconnect with their Judaism. Mm-hmm. So they did this, and it was amazing. So many people have benefited from the Jewish catalogs. So many of them.
I have to learn more about this. I've literally never heard of it.
Oh, they're so good. They're also
are they books? What are they?
Yeah, they're books. They're this big, and when you see them, you'll be like, oh yeah, that's very late 60s, early 70s.
And it's a catalog of what? Of practices?
Just loads of every single
It's not like the
catalog. They were
Sears
like,
catalog. What
let's
is it?
learn about this stuff and put that in. And then
Okay.
everyone was like, this is amazing. Oh, okay, well, let's learn about more stuff and put that in. And that's why there's 3 of them and with an index and everything. And they helped that generation and subsequent generations, actually, because, of Jews reconnect with their Judaism and understand it better. And then it inspired so many people to actually learn more and reconnect. And if this was the beginning, the seeding of their reconnection, then they could find their own way.
Okay.
So.
And they described this unraveling of the Torah scroll?
No.
Or what was
Not that I recall. I mean, there's 3 catalogs. I can't remember everything that's in it.
Okay, what was your point?
My point is that is something that didn't used to happen. And then
Well, I agree. It didn't happen 100 years ago.
If I'm not mistaken, it started happening with either the rabbis or the followers of the rabbis associated with sort of Pnei Or in the Jewish renewal movement, like Reb Zalman
Jewish
Schachter,
renewal is definitely
Shlomi, and who was a lovely man, by the way. May he rest in peace. Also a sofer.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he gave me advice actually about spacing, which I appreciate. So I mean, people. So that is it's a beautiful way for people to connect with the Torah scroll.
So here's what
and it means a lot to them.
Yeah.
And their hearts are very full.
Right.
And that is an important thing. Whatever religion or group you're going to be a part of, your heart has to be in it. It has to be, you have to have a sense of belonging. And there are many ways of doing that. But when you think about the laws and the halachot, they're not just there to keep things separate or apart or mysterious. That being said, sometimes it's appropriate for things to be separate and apart and mysterious because that's part of how it has its value. People don't understand how to treat parchment. They don't know that even if your hands are clean, if you touch that, then in 50 years, your fingerprints are going to show up on it, and it will cause damage because there's always acids in your fingers. That's why, you always have to work with paper down and sleeves, and you have to be very careful. And some scribes work with gloves on,
That's very controversial today because
of the change in the haptic feedback.
So basically the belief in most libraries that I've gone to with medieval manuscripts is if you have gloves on, you're going to cause more damage than if you don't.
Yeah.
Because you don't have the dexterity to turn the pages, and then Torah scrolls aren't pages. But still, I can think of 2, maybe 3 libraries that I've ever been to that asked me to put on gloves. And every other place said, no, you're not allowed to put on gloves. Not allowed to.
Because because you don't have that haptic feedback. You can't feel the pages the same way because it's like very early on, I was writing a Torah scroll and the place that I was writing wasn't heated because someone was offering this attic space for me to work in. So I wore gloves, but then of course I couldn't feel the quill properly, really. So then I ended up using gloves that had no fingers in them. It was like the fingertips were not there. And then I realized that, they're a little bit too fuzzy because the tiny bit of fuzz that was really microscopic was dragging through the fresh ink because I'm right-handed. So I was like, okay, can't use these either. I mean, again, luckily God's name was not involved.
Okay.
But
wow.